Hello everyone, this is ECAbrams, and in this After Effects tutorial, we're going to be creating floating, flying blobs that turn into text. You'll notice at the end that the text is very crisp, not very blobulous at all, and at the end of this tutorial, you'll be able to fill all kinds of shapes and containers with your blobulous floating blobs, or whatever. We talked about these things in a previous tutorial, and I know I promised in that one to follow up with this tutorial, but, here it is, better late than never. So let's get into After Effects and finally make good on that old promise. Here in After Effects, before we get right into the tutorial, I want to look at the part of the intro file that we're going to be focusing on here. So in order to create this thing, let's have a look at what is methodologically happening here. So we've got a blob. That blob kind of splats into something and then reveals it and then continues on its way. So in this case, we have one layer that is the blob that is moving in a spiral. And like I said, this was covered in a previous tutorial. So if you want to go back and look at that one, there's going to be a link to that, both in the description and probably in front of you right now. And we'll cover it briefly, but I'll just be blah, blah, blahing through the whole thing. So there's a blob. And as soon as the blob is making contact with something, you can see it's kind of splatting into it here. So that layer is this one. It is a layer that is just a shape layer, and it defines the shapes of what is going to be revealed. So this is the blob. This is what is being revealed, and this layer above it, which is its Luma mat, but it could be an alpha mat or whatever, is defining the shape of a blob that grows and works its way through as this blob is moving as well. So you can think of this one as something that moves, and this one as something that grows. So that's that. But three layers comprise this effect, and those are the ones we're going to be creating in the example. So I'm going to create new composition and call it example, I guess. So let's get into it. Like I said, only three layers are required on this. The first one is a blob. The second one is a thing to be revealed, and the third is a shape that is revealing it. There's a fourth layer, and that's the guide layer, but let's just go through and make stuff. So starting at the beginning, we need to make a blob. So what is that blob going to be? Well, it's going to be a shape. I'm going to call up the title and action safe here. I've selected the pen tool. I've got a purple stroke or pink stroke on it here. I'm just going to go dupe. 1, 2, 3 points. That's good enough for me. I've made a triangle. Great. Actually, I'd like it to have a fill. That would be great. And doesn't necessarily need to have a stroke on it at all. So I'll remove that. And let's make the fill something bright so we can see what we're doing. So this is going to be the blob, and it's going to move around. Now, where do we want it to move? That's a good question. So we want it to move in such a way that it will collide with and then move through something to be revealed. So something that's like a letter or something. So you could draw this letter using shapes. You could convert vector artwork into this. You could just use an Adobe Illustrator layer. We are going to use the text layer. So I'm going to pull up a letter C here. Awesome. That's very cool. What font to use? So many good fonts available, we could use really any of them. So I'm thinking we're going to use Avenir. We're going to use Avenir Black. It's nice and thick. Black, maybe heavy. You know what? These fonts are all messed up. So, don't worry about which one I'm using. I'm just using a font that looks like this. That's fine. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger by scaling it and use the align to just stick it sort of right in the middle, I suppose. I'm just going to move it a little bit this way, because if you stick a C in the middle of something, it's not, I don't know, I want it to be like a complete circle, so this thing circles around in the center. So that's good. We've got a blob, we've got a thing to be revealed. So I'm going to actually rename this thing to be revealed. All right, that's a long title. You shouldn't name your layers this way, but, for our purposes, that's what I'm doing. Who cares? So the next thing I want to do is take this blob, and I want to make this blob swirl around and eventually reveal this layer. So I call up its position first, and all of these things will be familiar if you've done the previous tutorial that is all about making these blobs. So set a keyframe, click on the stopwatch here. So your first keyframe is there. We'll move ahead. The next one will be there. Move ahead. The next one will be over here. Move ahead. The next one will be over here. Continue moving ahead. The next one will be down here. And now I want the path to basically follow in and do the shape of this letter. So move ahead. Your next spot is over here. Move ahead. Your next spot is over here. Move ahead. Your next spot is out here somewhere in the great unknown. I guess, yeah, the next spot could be off screen or something. Let's put it over there. So we've got all these keyframes going back to the beginning. Select them all, right click, and rove across time. What does that mean? Well, it means the first keyframe and the end keyframe are keyframes like you remember, but all the ones in the middle, those all become roved keyframes, which maintain a constant speed from this keyframe to this keyframe. So from first to last, same speed. So they pace themselves out in time such that they're easier to work with. So, you know, you can grab them and move them around if you would like. And that's all good. So what I'm going to do is grab some of these things. I'm going to attempt to move them and adjust their handles so that they line up better with the curve that I want them to take. So these are just Bezier handles, just like any path has Bezier handles. These are a path that show motion, so you can mess around with their handles and do that. If yours do not have handles, you're going to want to select them, right click, go into the keyframe interpolation, and make sure that their spatial interpolation, which is what is happening between the keyframes, is set to Bezier or something. So I'm going to do that. La 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 la. We are stretching out these handles. Creating a spiral that gradually relaxes as it goes out, and then the spiral collides with the butt end of this letter here, and then it starts to curve in and do things and blah, blah, blah. So it's all going to be super fascinating, whatever. So this is what we're looking at. We've got this path, we've got this shape. I'm just going to adjust the order of those. So what do we want to do next? Well, we're going to take this, we're going to go layer. So when I say this, I mean the blob. So blob. Specific nouns are important in tutorials, I'm told. It helps people know what I'm talking about. So we're going to take this thing, we're going to go layer, transform, and then we are going to auto-orient it so it is always along the path. Cool. Now I'm going to go in here, go into its contents, go into the shape, go into the path. I'm going to set keyframes along this path so that it's always sort of on its motion path. So I'm going to select all of its position keyframes. I'm going to copy them, Command C, Control C, whatever. I'm going to pull up the pen tool, just click randomly to make a new shape layer. The shape layer is contents. I'm going to go into its path here, and then I'm going to paste. And what does that do? Well, that sticks all of the position data now as points along this path. And if I go in and I transform the position here to be 0, 0, it lines up exactly over top of where that path is in terms of motion. So we've got the motion, we've got this thing looking good. So I'm going to take this thing and give it a stroke. All right, and take away its fill. So now we have a guide layer. So this is that fourth layer I talked about at the beginning, a guide. Awesome. So that guide can be locked because I don't want to edit it. And now I'm going to go into this thing and we're going to mess around with its shape. But first, you want to make sure that this thing is moving with the speed that you think it should. So I'm going to just pinch this in, and you can see roved keyframes. They're all adjusting themselves quite nicely. And we're going to go and easy ease this thing. And then I'm going to alter these points so that this is actually going to go up like this. So it's actually going to get faster towards the end. Cool. And try to arrange it in sort of a ramp like this. Neat. Now I'm going to move that in. So this whole thing is only going to take 1 second, which is great because That's enough keyframes. There's enough keyframes to worry about, and it's annoying. So, you know, we only have to do 24 frames of editing things. Now, just like in the previous blob tutorial, you take these points and you arrange them on the line here so that they make sense. So what I mean by make sense, well, have a look at the blob and have a look at the position. See these tiny little flecks on here? So we got this one, we got this one over here. Each one of those indicates where this thing is on a given frame. The big ones are ones you can edit, and the little ones are just there to annoy you. So it's currently on this pip here, and here's a pip and there's a pip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just set a guide on here so I can remember where that intersects. And when I select this path, I'm going to move its tail to be right there. And then I'm going to line up these two things to be on the path like this. And now I'm going to take my pen tool. I'm going to convert this one to be like this, convert this one to be like this. Go back to my arrow regular selection tool. And I'm going to form this to be along that path. So here we go. We got a blob that's along the path. It's got a tail. That's cool. And what we want to do is go along and make sure the tail stays on this line. So, you know, we've talked about this before. It's all very, very boring. You know, here at the beginning, we want this thing to be sort of smaller. You know, we take the path here and it should start as like a ball. So shrink this crap down, take its tail, bring it in like this. And, you can just go like blink, 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 blink. So that's where it can start for all I care. So this is frame 1. And now you want to go through and sort of fill in the rest of these things, keeping the tail on the line. You know, it's getting away, tail on the line, la, 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 la. Tail on the line, please. You know, just go through and make sure that, tail stays on the line. That's it. So you just, these curvy parts is where it starts to get funny. So right there and here at the end. Yep. So that's good. In fact, here at the end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch these things together. So it's becoming a very thin line as it goes. So this is where you want to make little alterations to things. And if you remember, the speed of this thing increases as it goes through, right? So that means that this blob should probably be getting longer as it moves along the path and whatever. So let's just go through one frame at a time. Blah, blah, blah. Oops, that needs adjustment. Blah, blah, blah. This one needs adjustment. Next, next, next. I'm hitting the, was it page up or page down? Yeah, it's page down. And then I'm hitting as we go along here. Page down, page down. Ooh, move this one on. Page down, page down. Yeah, a little bit. Page down. Stay on the path, you sick son of a bitch. Come on. Here we go. Getting a little bit off there. Doo, doo, doo. There we go. And then it thins out and goes away forever. So that's the end of that. Let's have a look at what we made. Solo that layer and hit N and just cool. I'm happy with how this thing came out. It's a blob. It's doing stuff. It's going by very quickly. Who cares? So you can take that guide layer. You don't need that anymore. So you can delete it if you want, whatever. Just don't look at it. It's not important. So guide, you've done your business. Thank you so much for coming out. And I'm just going to put that below everything. If you want to download this project file, there'll be a link to where you can get that. But everything will be included in there. You probably won't have the font, but whatever. So actually, that's a good point. If you don't have the font, then I'll just go here and I'll create shapes from this. And there we go. So I just made shapes from the text. So you're good to use this thing. Okay, so moving along, we've got this blob. What was the other layer? The last layer was a shape that is going to define where this thing is. And so it needs to start doing stuff here. So this is where interesting things start happening because this blob is now interacting with the shape we wanted to reveal. So how do we start this off? Well, we take the pen tool, make sure we've got nothing selected, and then we just sort of draw a shape around how we think this blob should be interacting with this space. So maybe it starts as a dot, maybe, I don't know. This is really going to depend on sort of your knowledge of fluid dynamics and how things should interact with each other in this kind of an environment. I mean, the viscosity of this thing, everything about it, it's all totally up to you. So at this stage, I'm just going to be drawing and using just an outline like this that's going to define the space. I'm going to move the layer to be there. I just hit the square bracket. If you don't have a square bracket on your keyboard, maybe you don't have the same keyboard as me, but you know, you just move the layer to start here because this is where we first see it. And we want this, hitting UU to bring up its path, to have a keyframe that basically this is where the blob starts. So how do you want the blob to start? How should that be? Well, I think it should be thicker at one end than it is at the other. So maybe it'll look like this. So that's fine by me. So at first, nothing, and then it's kind of a splat. So it is splatting onto this thing. Now you're going to want to build subsequent keyframes that come after this one. One of the troubles with doing frame-by-frame keyframe animation in this way is that After Effects lacks onion skinning. So if you're not familiar with the term onion skinning, go pick up an onion, peel it, and look how when you look through one layer of that onion, you can sort of see through it, but sort of not. What we want to do is on, let's say, layer 14, we want to know what this shape looked like on layer 13 and layer 12 so that we're able to anticipate and better create layer 14. So we have to look into the past and decide what we want to create in the future. It works the same moving backwards. So backwards and forwards, it's all the same. If you use a program like Photoshop, which most people do for this kind of thing, this methodology is usually done in Photoshop. If you're creating these abstract blobs, you export an image sequence, you open it up in Photoshop, you draw over it in Photoshop using the brush tool, and it's delightful onion skinning, layer duplicating, all sorts of great stuff in Photoshop. But if you want to keep it all here in After Effects, here's a little trick. On this layer, I'm going to apply an effect. It's called the echo, all right? Time echo effect. Awesome. So what does the echo effect do? Well, essentially, let me just solo this layer. The echo effect is looking backwards in time, and it's putting more of these things out there. So let's say I make an alteration. So I'm going to go to this keyframe and I'm going to go like this. All right. So you see what the echo is doing is it is looking negative 0.033 seconds into the past, and it is showing me where that would have been then. What I want to do is change this number to negative 1 divided by 24. Now I'm doing that because 1 divided by 24 will give me 1 frame, all right? So it'll show me what was happening on the previous frame. Then I can increase the number of echoes here to like 5. So I have many echoes of what's going on. And what you want to do with these echoes is change them to be something like composite in back or composite in front or something like that. And then you want to alter down this intensity here so that they're less transparent. So now you can see what you had done before. And I mean, if we change this to be black or something, you know, that's easy to tell what was going on. If we give it a fill like this, that's not as easy. There we go. We'll do that. You know, that's, you know, you're able to see where this was before. So now you've created onion skinning inside of After Effects, and we can use this to work. So, you know, right now all these colors are total crap for me, but just alter this in some way. All right, fine. So we've got a purple blob, we've got a black squiggle, and we're going to change all the colors at the end. This is just because I have shitty eyes and such. So let's go 1 frame at a time and draw what we want. So we know that the furthest point of this revealing blob needs to be out here. So it needs to be needs to be out at least as far as this shape here. As for the rest of the features, they should probably be growing as well. And how much they should be growing, I'm not totally sure, but I kind of want this to have a bit of a wave shape to it. So I'm going to just create like a wave, kind of like this. So it's like a blob pushing in this way, and good. So it started here, and now it's like this, and it's got like a wave that's starting to build into it. Awesome. So now we just move to the next frame, and then we drag some of these handles along. So this I want to continue in this direction. So it's getting larger this way. This is getting larger this way. I want this wave to continue pushing through like this. That's neat. The wave is starting to crest. That's interesting. You know, I want to move this up a little bit so that this is still expanding. Cool. Moving on to the next one. So this blob continues to move this way. You know, this path is now pushed out that far. This is now pushed out this far. So you got to keep going. You got to keep going one thing at a time and moving and expanding and pushing things along and sort of making sure that the expected curvature of a lot of these things is what's happening. So why am I doing this one thing at a time, right? That's probably the big question you're asking. Why are you going one frame at a time? You're using keyframes. Why don't you just go to the end and that's it? Well, the problem with doing it that way is it creates a very unnatural look, and there's not a lot of nuance to what you'll have created. Certainly there's enough gap between the motion here that this wave should have collapsed on itself by this keyframe, right? So as I go through and finish this up, then this should now be like so, right? So that keyframe is now done. Things are accelerating. But the reason that we're doing it one keyframe at a time is because there's a lot of detail that's lost when this all just expands at once. And certainly you can bend the speed graphs of these things and make them fit, but really you want them to be going one frame at a time. You want to be hand drawing this thing. You want to put in the time and the detail that you're after. Really, the big thing that makes these pieces so interesting is the amount of detail that gets put into them. So, you know, don't shirk that kind of responsibility. This blob is here to guide you. This shape is here to guide you. This tutorial is here to guide you. So, you know, we're going to keep moving through, and you can see how your piece has evolved as it's come to where it is now. Eventually you'll get to a point like here where I'm like, man, I really need to add an extra point to this path. So I grab the pen tool here, and then I just pull one of those out. And now I'm able to create a new sort of wave design that's happening. So now I can add a little bit of detail in here about this. So this is how we're sort of showing the audience, well, we're showing off to the audience, but we're showing them what is the shape and character of this thing, right? So we really want to imbue what we're doing with life. We want to imbue it with character. We want to make it interesting. We want to show off how really neato everything we do is. So you really want to, you know, take the time and do that. But like I said, there are really only 24 frames to go through this thing. So it's going to happen quite quickly. And really, you know, you've watched me do this for about 10 minutes, 25 minutes. I don't know, a lot of minutes, but now it's done. So that's it. This thing has now left. This shape is resolved, and there we go. So we've got this thing coming through and revealing all of this thing. So you want to go through here. You just want to make sure there are no sort of glaring omissions with what's going on. Like so. Cool. So now we can go ahead and change all of the colors. So what are the things we want to change? Well, let's give the blob a color that's not horrendous purple. All right. So let's go to the blob here. Let's, I don't know, maybe something like this. Cool. Let's go to the revealing shape here. We're going to give it a fill. Okay. And the fill should be white. I prefer doing it this way. And the stroke, we're going to do black, but we're going to put it down to 0. So the stroke is of size 0. And the thing being revealed needs to be directly under the thing revealing, or the revealer, or whatever. I don't know. This reveals this. So that's what we're saying. That means that the thing being revealed, let's just say it should have the same color as the blob. All right, cool. So now we use the track matte, and we're going to go Luma matte of the revealer. All right. Now, why are we using the Luma matte? Well, the Luma matte is saying, hey, layer above me, what on you is white? And then one says, well, this parts of me is white. This layer is now revealed as only the places where this has dominion. Like where's the whiteness? Well, it's in this zone because that's where we drew it, right? And, you know, that's all there is to it. You can turn off that echo because it's no longer useful. And let's watch what we created. I'm making that gross sound because that's what's happening. Look at how grody that is, but also how accurate and good that is, you know? So it's kind of got this cresting wave pattern that comes through it and reveals itself. So that's what we're doing. That's what we were after this whole time, right? Now you can go through and you can make little adjustments to it as you need. But remember that echo effect is what showed you where things are at. Like, where is this thing at? Where's that thing at? Where should I go next? So the echo is showing you those onion skins. They're going to help you know what should come next. And if you have trouble, like, oh, I don't know how water would react, just go put some in a glass. Go watch it. Go put some maple syrup on some stuff. Watch it run down the wall. You got to observe natural things to get that motion. But that's it. That's all there was to it. You know, there's nothing profound or mystical about what you're looking at here. There's no trick to it. It's just a bit of work. Sometimes it's a lot of work if you're doing more complex shapes, if you're doing more wacky things, but this onion skinning allows you to do that. And if you have something, oh, it's getting very complex, there's so many multiple things, just make a new shape. You know, just make a new thing. Don't try to cram it all into one thing. This is not one layer. It's 3 layers. You know, don't be afraid to make more layers. And this deflates like a balloon, and, you know, put in some splashes or whatever and, you know, draw those in, but don't be afraid to just draw some things. You know, that's one of the big problems is that people are usually looking for, well, what's the easy solution? There's got to be an effect that does this. There's got to be a real easy thing. Well, this is really easy. It's really easy. Just go draw this thing. It's that easy. If you have just a bare minimum amount of drawing ability, this will be no problem. And, you know, it's slightly better than the Photoshop method, I think, just because you're putting points and paths, and you don't have to draw the whole blob shape in Photoshop. I mean, certainly there are quick workarounds and shortcuts in the Photoshop method. And the Photoshop method is good. You know, don't get me wrong. It's a really good method. And I might cover it in another tutorial when I talk about really painstaking rotoscoping. But this method is a little bit quicker, you know, just a little bit. But it's because you fake that onion skinning. So anyway, hopefully this helps you to make this thing. If you want to sort of finish off yours the same way mine was finished off, I just added a solid behind everything like this. And then I added a new adjustment layer and put that above everything. And what I put on that was a turbulent displace. So I put this turbulent displace on here and see how crazy that makes everything look. And I went to the evolution, I hold down Alt, I click on that stopwatch of the evolution. And the evolution is saying, you know, what settings are we under here? And you can either do something like time times 100, which causes this thing to sort of warp around. Time times 1,000 might actually be a little bit more in keeping with what you want. And then you just basically tone down the amount, tone down the size, you know, and you can see it's kind of jiggling, wiggling a little bit around. Not much though, you know, it's not substantial wiggling, jiggling. So what I usually do is I go random, which is picking a random number and then multiply that by 100 or 1,000 or something. So just so instead of a sequential number, it is an insane, you know, and you never know what number is going to come out. You never know. And then what you can do is you just keyframe the amount from a high number and down to a low number. And it's done around here, down to 0. So when the animation is completed, it stops wiggling around, and then it's just the static letter that you wanted the whole time. So that's about it. That's it. That's the last thing. I put a noise on there and other such accoutrement, but that's not important to this effect. These things are important. It's 3 layers plus the guide layer. It's turbulent displace. You're gonna get out of this thing all right. It's not that hard, and it looks pretty nice. Right? Doesn't that look nice? It's a big C. If you wanted to animate a C, then your project's already done. If you didn't, then sorry. This has been Evan Abrams. If you want to go back and see that floating blobs thing, go check that out. This makes use of shape layers. If you want to see more about shape layers, check out more tutorials I have about those. I think shape layers are amazing. They're one of my favorite things. And it's my favorite things. And yeah, that's about it. If you want to get more Evan Abrams in your life, go over to evanabrams.com. Check me out on the Facebook, Google+, all that stuff. Follow me on Twitter at ECAbrams. If you have questions about this, ask them in the comments of this particular video, and I'll try to help you out. If you have more general comments, Facebook is the place for that, or the Twitter at ECAbrams on there. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this is helpful. I look forward to seeing the cool things you people craft with your hands, and just post those in the comments too. I mean, YouTube loves to block anything that has a link on it, but whatever, give it a try. So anyway, thanks again. I can't say that enough. The amount of support that you guys give the channel is amazing, and I'll keep making tutorials as long as people keep enjoying them. So subscribe to this channel, and you'll see more After Effects and visual effects stuff. Thanks again, and I'll see you around the internet.